Hi everyone, welcome to this week's lecture. This week, our topic is data collection instruments, and we will be looking at several um, data collection strategies that we use in qualitative and quantitative studies. The second thing that we would also look at is the characteristics of good measures, uh, characteristics of the measures of the instruments that are used in research. And we would also look at differences between quantitative and qualitative data. Um, how are they similar, and what are some differences that they have? The last thing that we will look at in this lecture is the tools that we use in collecting data. Data collection is a very important part of research itself. Without data collection, we won't be able to um, answer the queries that we have set up. And so data collection helps us to um, provide um, some type of way to address the queries that we pose. And the queries that I'm referring to are the research questions and the hypotheses that we have. Um, However, there is no one best way to collect data. So the best way would depend on what your needs are. If you need to collect data about numbers, then you would need to collect what we call quantitative data, and that kind of data can be collected using instruments that are appropriate for collecting quantitative data, such as surveys. Um, But if you want to hear stories, if you want to hear information that's more detailed, if you want to find a way, if you want to gain more insight beyond um, the opinions of the people, you want to make your own observations, you want to ask more questions to get in-depth information or to look into the stories, then you would have to collect data differently using maybe qualitative methods. The best way to collect data would also depend on where the data is residing. So where can we find the data? Is it within the physical environment? Is it in files? Um, and by that we mean documents. Is it with people? And how much resources and time would you need to actually collect the data, and how much resources and time do you have at your disposal? That's very important because qualitative data collection sometimes can be quite extensive, um, in the sense that you may need to get to the people that you want to collect the data from, and may spend uh, an amount of time getting to collect this information. Um, Same thing with quantitative data. Sometimes we cannot collect information from as many people as we would desire, and so the best strategy would have to depend also on the resources and the time that you have available. You also have to think about the complexity of the data to be collected. Do you just want to collect information about something that's relatively easy to understand? Or do you want to collect information that on something that's complex that require you to collect more information about several aspects of what you're looking at? And also, how frequently do you want to collect the data? Is this something you want to collect every week, every month? Um, and how do you intend to analyze the data? Um, the last point is very important because data collection and analysis, just like I said, requires a lot of time and requires considerable expense in terms of the data collection and expertise in terms of the data analysis? Do you have the expertise to actually analyze the data? Uh, if you are collecting, let's say, qualitative information using survey and interviews or focus groups, do you have the expertise to not only collect the data but also to analyze it? Do you have some type of software at your disposal? Um, there are several rules that we have there for collecting data, um, and one of the rules is that it's best to use multiple data collection methods. And the reason why using multiple data collection methods is because we want to make sure that whatever data or information that we have um, is able to corroborate other data that we have. So you start off a study with a survey and also do interviews that helps you to kind of like cross-check the facts that you have from the survey. Um, Always also use available data. Um, when you need to conduct a study and you need to collect data, make sure that your first focus is in checking whether there is available data. Because if there is data out there, there is no need to waste the time and money to go collect data. But when there is available data, make sure that you are able to assess that data to see how the measures were defined. Um, how was the data collected, and to what extent do we have missing data or incorrectly imputed data? How accurate is that data that you want to use? And that's why people are sometimes careful with using existing data because of um, the limitations that such data sets may have in terms of missing data, in terms of accuracy. Um, If you must collect original data, be sensitive to the burdens of others. Think about putting a survey online and asking people to complete that survey. Some people may have a survey that has 200 questions. That would require someone to sit down for over 2 hours or more just to complete that survey. That's not a burden that you want to put on someone that's trying to complete a survey, especially when it's not paid. Um, so think about the respondents. Um, think about how disruptive your data collection process could be on them. If you must collect original data, also think about if you want to conduct a study that contains some type of pretest, which is that are you trying to make some type of measurement before you would collect data and afterwards um, analyze that data to verify if there is a change in the respondents. Uh, if you must collect original data, also think about establishing procedures like a protocol and following through on that protocol to actualize your plan. Making a detailed plan of how you intend to collect the data will help you to actualize that. And um, also, there are challenges with maintaining accurate uh, records of the data you collected. Once data is collected, especially with surveys, you would have to also impute that into some type of software for analysis. And this will also require coding that information. Same thing with qualitative information, where qualitative data that you would collect, where you would need to sometimes code this information into themes and to derive the meanings. Um, and so there could be problems of verifying the accuracy of the coding and of the data input, or even the method of data analysis that is used. Some characteristics of good measures is that those measures must be relevant, credible, valid, and reliable. Relevant in the sense that are they does the measure capture what matters? Um, does your study just measure what is easy instead of what is needed? Um, so, for instance, you're trying to look at the impact of, um, let's say, hypothetically, you're looking at um, the impact of tuition increase on student enrollment in school, and you want to go about that with doing interviews. Um, will that actually capture what's really important to the people? Or are you just doing that because that's an easy way of getting the information that you want? Is whatever measure you're using credible? Will it be viewed as something that's reasonable and appropriate way to capture the information that you're seeking to capture? Just like the example that I gave, if you were to use survey information, because of the limitations with survey, which is that um, the questions are kind of like fixed, and so the people would only respond to the extent to which the questions are asked. But if you were to use, let's say, um, interviews, face-to-face interviews, then you're likely to capture as much information as you could. Um, the other thing is internal validity, which is how well does the measure capture what it's supposed to measure. Um, if you are measuring, let's say, students' attitude towards fees increase, you would not also assess, you would not have questions on that instrument that is looking at the quality of their learning experiences, because those are two different things. And reliability just talks about the extent to which the results will be obtained with repeated trials. So if we were to take that same study and do it in a different context, or if we were to do that study in that same context a second time, will we get the results that we got the first time that we did the study? Um, Another valid question to ask is which data. Um, if you want to conduct some type of statistical analysis, then you have to use quantitative um, data collection method. If you want to be precise, then you have to use quantitative data data collection method. If you want to know, if you want to measure, then you have to use quantitative. If you want to cover a large group, then you have to use quantitative um, instrument as well. But if you want a narrative or in-depth information, just like I said earlier on, you would have to use a qualitative instrument. This, which could be like an interview protocol, a list of questions from which you would ask the person, oftentimes like open-ended questions. If you're not sure what you want to measure, then also use qualitative. If you do not need to quantify the results, but you want to provide narratives, also use qualitative. Uh, other, Another type of data collection method that we could look at is obtrusive and unobtrusive. Obtrusive data collection methods directly collect data from those that are being evaluated, like interviews and surveys and focus groups. But unobtrusive um, collects this information indirectly. So we could do like a document analysis. We could look at fingerprints on the door to look at how many people probably passed through a door, etc. Um, how do we decide on data collection approach? How do we make a determination on the best approach? The choice will depend on the situation because every technique is appropriate in some situation than others. Just like the example that I talked about, if we want to get more information about how students feel about um tuition increment, we could use both qualitative and quantitative